After my boyfriend, 27, cheated on me, 28, with his ex, I chose to stay. Just as I was rebuilding trust, his ex started a harassment campaign. "You're his girlfriend, not me," she screamed while he finally returned her things. Now, how do I heal from this betrayal? TLDR, I was unfaithfully betrayed by my boyfriend who cheated on me with his ex, and then she began to harass me. He finally returned all of her belongings to her and told her to leave him alone yesterday. Now I am beginning the process of trying to rebuild my trust in him. I would appreciate advice on this matter. I provided more specifics on the kind of advice I need at the end of the previous paragraph. Please refrain from comments such as "leave him, this is not about that." I have already made my decision and want to stick with it, but I am dealing with some challenges, and I would greatly appreciate insight from someone who has found themselves in a similar situation or who was the unfaithful partner in a comparable circumstance. Thank you. This might be a lengthy read, so here we go. I am very grateful to anyone who makes it through this. Full story: he cheated on me with his ex. Do not ask how, I saw it coming. I felt that he had not fully resolved his past relationship with her. I informed him that I was just coming out of a relationship and was still emotionally invested in someone else at the time we met. He did not mention that he had just recently ended his relationship with her as well. He claims he did, but I would have remembered that because I had been in a similar situation before. In that case, I was not cheated on but left for the ex, which truly shattered my heart. Therefore, I am naturally more vigilant about such matters. We eventually discussed this because she was attempting to sabotage our relationship, which he did not understand back then. I expressed that I was uncomfortable with her presence in our lives, as she clearly did not respect the boundaries necessary for them to maintain a friendship. He assured me that he understood and would establish those boundaries with her. He did so, and I chose to trust him. We worked on our relationship steadily for several months, but both experienced hardships. Regrettably, instead of supporting one another, we took out our frustrations on each other. One day in December, I broke up with him and we did not speak for 3 days. However, we quickly reconciled, spending Christmas and New Year's together, and decided we both wanted to improve our relationship. We concluded that we needed to work individually on ourselves as well. I committed to this, waking up earlier, exercising daily, eating healthily, and prioritizing daily walks. I lost 12 kilograms in 2 months and felt significantly better, motivated by the changes I saw in him too. During this time, he informed me that he was working a lot and could not stay at my place. I was avoiding his home because I continually found reminders of his ex, which was reasonable, as they had lived together previously. However, by this point, we had been together for 8 or 9 months, and I urged him to gather all her belongings and return them to her because they made me uncomfortable. He agreed to do so, so I chose to trust him again. My house is just 2 blocks from his grandmother's, whom he visits every day, making it more convenient for him to come to my place. I saw him almost every day but began to notice he consistently left around 7 p.m. Then came the day my old dog, who had been with me for 17 years, needed to be euthanized in February. I called my boyfriend and he came, arranged the veterinarian visit for me, stayed with me throughout, and contacted the crematorium as well. Afterward, he went to have dinner with his grandmother and returned to spend the night with me. I literally fell asleep crying into his shoulder while he held me. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to my dog barking and someone yelling outside. I went outside to check and found his ex standing at my fence, throwing rocks and yelling like a madwoman that she was his girlfriend and that I was a bitch and that they lived together, etc. I have this all on camera, by the way. I woke him up and he was bewildered, saying, "Let me take her away from here." I was so exhausted that I just passed out. The next day, he came over to apologize and admitted to starting to see her again when we broke up for those 3 days. I swallowed my pride and let him speak. I was surprised by my reaction. Compassion, instead of anger, to something that was not expected from either of us, showed me that I truly loved him. He repeatedly expressed that he did not know why he did it, that he thought we would break up, and that he felt he was not good enough for me while going through immense struggles, including losing his business, his grandmother being seriously ill, and his father exploiting him for money and work. He was worried about ending up alone and truly did not want to be by himself. He clearly stated that he did not want to be with her, marry her, or, God forbid, have her bear his children, which is significant because we frequently discuss a future together. He was excited about the prospect of building a life at his father's ranch, often referring to me by my full name with his last name and mentioning future plans including marriage. He sobbed uncontrollably, expressing disbelief that he had ruined his chance with me. I remained quiet and asked what the next steps were, and he said, "I don't know how to fix this, I don't know how to make it right for you." I offered to take him to my therapist for clarity and he accepted. Later that day, he visited her. I hoped it would help and asked him not to discuss what the therapist said with anyone. I also took some time to reflect on whether I truly wanted to be with him after what happened, realizing that I played a part in making him feel inadequate while he did so much for me. I had been depressed and did not treat him well for months, failing to appreciate him despite everything he did for me. I had taken him for granted while being absorbed in my own struggles and did not realize my selfishness. While I do not understand why he cheated and never could, I began to grasp why he felt so alone, abandoned, and unappreciated in our relationship. I understand why he believed he was not good enough and thought I would leave him. I am truly sorry for making him feel this way. When I next saw him, I shared this with him, and he broke down in tears, thanking me for my words and affirming that they validated his feelings, but stressed that I should never believe it was my fault. He accepted full blame and was honest with himself. He then asked me to give him some time to resolve matters with her, which I initially agreed to. However, his ex soon began attacking me online, calling, texting, and sending her friends after me. The worst part is that I don't even know what she looks like, so I live in constant fear that she might confront me unexpectedly or send someone to do so. I am genuinely frightened. During this entire ordeal, she also left multiple inappropriate comments on his social media, trying to undermine my place as his girlfriend, despite him informing her repeatedly that I was indeed his girlfriend. Throughout this, I have not responded to her. I have remained composed and allowed her to throw her tantrum. Now, almost 2 months later, he finally returned all of her remaining possessions yesterday, as she had been refusing to meet him to collect them or making him wait for weeks whenever he tried to drop them off, most likely just to deliberately mess with us. He described it as a horrible experience and came to my house afterward seeking comfort, appearing as though someone had just kicked a puppy. I understand that this was difficult for him. He finally closed a chapter with her that had been open for 4 years. They had become a couple during the pandemic. Even though he never found her attractive, he explained that they had grown up together as friends, and during the pandemic, things took a romantic turn. They experienced a toxic on-and-off relationship for 3 years until he finally ended it a few months before meeting me. I honestly believe she thought they were merely experiencing another phase in their tumultuous relationship, and once she realized it was over, she began sabotaging our connection and harboring resentment toward me. Since he had not truly closed that chapter, he failed to enforce crucial boundaries. When she started threatening me, I told him, "What troubles me the most is that you would cheat on me with someone of such poor character." She is genuinely unpleasant inside and out, though I did not express that. She appears to have aggression issues as well. It deeply hurts me that he would hurt my feelings for someone like that, and yes, it truly affected me. I am not like her at all. I actively strive to be the best version of myself and have never been aggressive toward anyone. In fact, I dislike confrontations. I do not wish to appear shallow, but I am a tall woman who exercises daily, owns a business, possesses a house, a car, and motorcycles, and I am constantly being invited to model for brands. In fact, I am about to sign my first contract with an agency. I am educated, speak 3 languages fluently, and constantly strive for self-improvement. In contrast, she appears to be overweight, as I could ascertain that night, behaves aggressively, disrespects boundaries, and cannot control her ego, making her seem poorly educated. She lives with her parents, does not have a vehicle, and works a low-level job. I regret phrasing it this way, but an educated person does not conduct themselves in such a manner. This genuinely troubled me. He suggested that perhaps I am the person he believes he deserves, which led to his actions after visiting my therapist, but I am unsure how to interpret that. Now I am going back to his house later today to retrieve some of my belongings so I can spend more time there. I was very excited about this until I'm not sure why I did it, checked his Instagram followers and discovered that he still follows her. He had blocked her for a while when she would not stop commenting, but later felt the need to communicate with her to resolve matters and return her belongings. He returned her items just a day ago, so I do not want to seem pushy or anything. I know this was an emotional strain for him, and he did this for my sake. Even if he does not wish to be with her romantically, I understand he would likely want to keep her in his life as a friend since they grew up together. They had many years of friendship before beginning a relationship. I understand that. However, it does not change the fact that I am uncomfortable with her having access to his life, or more precisely, our life. I am uncertain how or when to address this with him or how to overcome the trust issues that have arisen from this situation. I am genuinely trying not to overthink it, but I can feel the tension building whenever his phone makes a sound. I actively avoid looking at his phone screen while he is next to me, fearing her name might pop up and hurt me again. I have ultimately resolved to stay with him for all the positive aspects he brings to my life, striving to cope with the one mistake he made. However, this is exceptionally challenging for me. I would appreciate advice on how to A. Ask him to block her again so that we can have privacy from her without appearing pushy, and B. How to overcome the trust issues this has instigated within me. I recognize that he can do very little to truly help, as most of the healing and forgiveness must occur within myself. I would like to hear from someone with relevant experience to offer guidance. Story 2. Ghosted again by S, who claims she hates the thought of hurting me yet disappears for weeks. After 8 months rekindling our connection, I'm left anxious, confused, and deeply missing her. Is the anniversary of her breakup haunting her, or is it me? Apologies in advance for the length. I'm not sure exactly what to call our relationship. I guess it is sort of a long-distance situationship. We are more than just friends, but less than an official boyfriend and girlfriend. We have been communicating for 8 months now. I will refer to her as SS as a transgender female, and I am only mentioning this because I am not transgender, and I recognize there are experiences that transgender individuals go through that may be difficult for me to understand or relate to. Perhaps some transgender individuals reading this can provide insight. S and I have actually known each other for over 5 years. She used to live in my city and we met online. Our relationship was primarily sexual during that time. We hooked up twice, even though I desired more. It is unclear if she also wanted more back then or not. I have always felt that deep down she did, but she was not ready to acknowledge it. She says she did not know about my feelings for her at that time, and thought it was purely about sex since that is all most guys wanted from her. To summarize a lengthy backstory, S has a history of ghosting me for days, weeks, or even months at a time. Every time we would plan for an actual date, she would ghost me. She admitted that she easily got overwhelmed and expressed her dislike in dealing with situations when that occurred. She also confessed to being insecure about her appearance, although I have done my best to reassure her that I find her beautiful. We lost contact for a year once the COVID-19 pandemic began. The next time I communicated with her, she revealed that she had a partner, a gender non-conforming male who had been living in another state but was moving to live with her. Their relationship status at the time I was intimate with S is unclear. They might have had an open relationship, as S asked if I would be interested in a threesome, but she also told me not to inform her partner that we had previously hooked up. I suspect this partner influenced her reluctance to develop our relationship beyond a physical connection. We exchanged sporadic texts for a couple of months, but it never progressed, and I decided to move on upon discovering she was in a relationship. 3 years later, in July 2024, I felt very lonely one day and chose to reach out to S. She felt like the one who got away, and I still believed deep down that she had some feelings for me. I sent her a message, and to my surprise, not only did she respond, but she expressed her excitement to hear from me. It turns out she had ended her relationship with her partner a few months earlier, in March 2024. I do not know the details, but she describes it as a challenging breakup, and I know it is something she continued to struggle with months after we started communicating again. S behaved very differently this time around. She was responsive, engaged, and interested in getting to know me on a more personal level. She sent me good morning and good night texts, and we texted frequently every day. It was everything I had always hoped for. The only issue is that she moved back home 3 hours away. We both agree we are not ready for something serious at this moment, so we will continue talking and see where things led in the future. About 3 months in, we had another discussion about this. We both wish we could have more, but it would be challenging for either of us to move right now. We do not want to lose each other, so once again, we agree to maintain our current situation. We had another conversation like this around New Year's Eve, which concluded similarly, with her stating that although she desired more, she did not think she could handle it currently, and she was content with how things were. Around mid-January, I started to notice a change. Texts were less frequent, sometimes only once a day, and she seemed distant. I understand the political changes in America were affecting her, and she mentioned that things on her college campus felt tense, leaving her feeling worried and depressed. I tried my best to offer reassurance and let her know I was available for support. During the first few days of February, she did not respond to my texts at all. It was the first time in 6 months that we did not communicate. After 3 days, I texted her again to check if she was okay. She finally replied, apologized, and told me her mind was in a weird place and that she had been losing track of things. Things returned to a bit more normal over the next 2 weeks, but then she vanished for a few days again. When I inquired if she was all right, she finally responded and said she had been very ill. The next day, she texted me to say she was feeling a bit better and apologized for her lack of responsiveness lately. I told her it was okay, but what I said afterward was a mistake. I was feeling insecure about our relationship and concerned her interest in me was diminishing. I communicated that I still felt as strongly about her as I always had and hoped she felt the same. There was no response. I waited 24 hours and texted her again to say that if she did not still feel that way, I would like to know that too. Still no response. My anxiety skyrocketed, and after a couple of hours, I sent her another text pleading for her to say something. A huge, embarrassing mistake, I know. She did finally respond, but only to say that this was not a good time for her to talk. I apologized and assured her that I understood. A few days later, I texted her again to apologize. After a week, she finally reached out. She informed me that she had been going through a difficult time because her godfather had passed away recently. However, after attending the funeral, she felt she had some closure and her mind was clearer. She again apologized for her lack of communication, stating she just needed space. She acknowledged that she should have told me this and felt foolish for not doing so. She expressed that when things become overwhelming, she tends to shut down but would try to do better next time because she felt terrible for missing me and had been thinking about me a lot. She asked for my forgiveness if she had hurt my feelings, as she genuinely cared about me and disliked the thought of causing me pain. Naturally, I gladly accepted her apology and expressed how much I missed her, also expressing my condolences for her loss. I emphasized that it was entirely acceptable for her to take space whenever necessary, but I wished she would communicate that with me instead of disappearing. I encouraged her to feel comfortable sharing when something was wrong in the future because I care about her and want to support her. I also conveyed my concern that I may have ruined things, and she reassured me that she did not believe I could mess anything up. The following 2 weeks were wonderful. S returned to her usual self and shared that she was feeling very happy because she had missed our conversations. However, in mid-March, I went on vacation. We were still communicating relatively regularly, but S confided in me that she was feeling stressed out and depressed regarding her college finals occurring during this time. We had been trying to schedule a video call, and I asked her several times during my trip about calling. She consistently declined, stating she was tired or that it was too late. And since I had been making these requests kind of late at night, I understood her reasoning. On the last day of my trip around noon, she informed me that her shift at work had been canceled, she was at home, and she had no plans. Her finals were also completed except for one last exam in 3 days. I thought this would be an ideal time to call, but she rejected me again, saying it was not a good time. I felt hurt. I had genuinely wanted to see her and was excited to share everything I had been doing during my trip. I said okay and apologized, promising not to ask again. She said she did not mind my inquiries, but she was just unable to speak right now. The last thing she said to me was, "I'm being weird because things are unusual for me at the moment. I'm sorry." I requested clarification about what that meant, and she has not replied since. I texted her that evening to apologize for whatever she was experiencing, but I wish she would communicate what was wrong instead of shutting down. We had literally just discussed that a couple of weeks earlier. I reached out in the following days to let her know I was flying home, to wish her good luck on her final exam, and again the day after the exam, expressing hope that it had gone well. I waited 5 more days to text her again, this time requesting some form of communication because I was feeling very confused about what was happening. A couple of days later, I sent her a meme about missing her and prompted her to respond. I waited another day and then sent another text expressing that I just wanted her to be alright, even if that meant taking time away from me. I explained that the sudden decline in communication was difficult for me to handle as she had become such a significant part of my daily life. I conveyed that I cared about her, that I found her amazing, and that I did not want to lose her. I waited another 5 days and texted her yesterday, on April 1st, stating that I hoped a new month would help bring closure to whatever she was dealing with in March and provide her with a fresh start. I shared that I still missed her and thought of her, and that I would be here when she was ready to talk. So that is where we stand now. I have been terribly depressed from losing her, and it is affecting my work and friendships. I am seeking some outside perspective and guidance on what to do next. I have considered texting her again to apologize for expressing my feelings when she turned down my call, but I worry I have already messaged her too many times, and that would only exacerbate the situation. It is challenging to restrain myself from reaching out to her when I miss her so desperately. I do not know how long I should keep waiting. A few additional details that might be relevant. March, the month she stopped communicating with me, is also the month she ended her relationship with her partner. Perhaps the 1-year anniversary of that breakup is affecting her. During the time we have been talking, we attempted to arrange a meeting in person once. We both admitted to feeling nervous. She canceled on the day of, citing weather concerns, but I have reason to believe the weather was not as severe as she described. We agreed to try again after winter, but we have not discussed it much since. Am aware that she struggles with issues related to self-image and self-esteem. I do not have the exact wording saved because the messages were on Snapchat, but she once expressed something about herself along the lines of, "I am a huge piece of garbage." I was taken aback as she had never spoken about herself like that before. She said, "Sorry, that is just how I talk about myself and what thoughts go through my head. This is what I mean when I say I am scared you will find out how much I suck." I suspect this may be something her ex-partner has mentioned to her, but that is merely a guess. Story 3. Considering cutting ties with my mom, 67, and brother, 50, over their toxicity, after my divorce they turned against me, accusing me of exploiting our grandmother's 90 house. My mom denied a dog bite to my son. "You're lying." I fear for my grandma's well-being. How do I protect her? For context, my divorce was finalized last week. My brother appeared to take it much harder than I did for some reason and was very hostile toward me and my ex-wife. So much so that both my ex-wife and I have blocked him on all platforms, as well as his wife. We used to be relatively close, and we would help look after my child, 3-year-old male, but I am not sure what has changed in him recently. He lashed out at me and my ex-wife shortly after one day of babysitting, threatened me, kicked me out of his house, called and yelled at my ex-wife, questioning her parenting and expressed anger that our mother was babysitting for him, claiming that she could not be trusted. That detail is relevant to the next major point. Once again, he has been blocked since that incident, as my ex-wife and I remain close and are in frequent communication. Since my divorce initiated, I have been living with my grandmother, 90-year-old female, and things have been great. Since I was covering my attorney fees out of pocket, she was not charging me rent. Also, since it has been over a year, my son has become quite comfortable in her home, so we began discussing the possibility of me purchasing her house since we both feel at home here. Everything was going smoothly, but she is a stubborn woman and did not want to engage in any formal paperwork, stating that once my divorce concluded, I would simply buy it, and she was adamant that she would not deceive me. The agreement was the market value of the house minus realtor fees since they would not be involved in a private sale. That situation triggered my brother, as he became convinced that I was taking advantage of our grandmother. I tried to explain to him that if I were a master manipulator, I would not have initiated the conversation at market value, but he refused to listen. He then contacted our mother, who had the same idea in her head. Unfortunately, the worst-case scenario unfolded a couple of weeks ago when my grandmother had a stroke. Fortunately, it was not severe. She returned home in a couple of days, but she has not been at 100%, which is to be expected. Consequently, the entire family has been focused on her naturally. My uncle was aware of the house sale and was indifferent. I have not spoken to my aunt about it, so I do not know her perspective. Since the stroke, family members have been staying here to care for my grandmother, as I do not have the luxury of a work-from-home type job. For the most part, it has been fine. However, in typical fashion, my mother has been staying on and off with us and always brings her aggressive and awful dog when she visits. A few weeks ago, my son attempted to hug her goodbye during an exchange with my ex-wife, and the dog attempted to bite my son in the face out of defensiveness. Naturally, I had to address this issue. My mother has since accused me and my ex-wife of lying, claiming that the situation never occurred. My uncle reached out to me and was sympathetic because he also dislikes the dog and does not want his grandchildren around it either. The dog is a 20-pound schnauzer, large enough to cause significant harm to a toddler. Since my brother has been blocked, he called our father to complain. My father was surprised to learn about the near dog bite incident and was astonished that my mother was not taking it seriously. For additional context, when I was 6, a dog bit me in the face, resulting in over 60 stitches and nearly causing me to lose my left eye. Please note that I love animals and have not been permanently traumatized by the experience. As my family began discussing how to care for my grandmother, I offered to take charge. I am a former firefighter, nurse, and paramedic and am well qualified in health matters to address issues as they arise. Furthermore, I have also been living with my grandmother for a year and know her wishes verbally, even though she has not written anything down. For now, my family has simply wanted someone to live in the house full-time to keep an eye on my grandmother. I informed my mother that since she has refused to address the dog bite issue, she is no longer responsible for babysitting. In response, she is attempting to persuade my grandmother to evict me, claiming I am being a bully. To add insult to injury, my grandmother blacked out and fell yesterday. I was in another room, as was my mother, so neither of us witnessed the fall, but we heard and felt her hit the floor hard. I immediately called emergency services and began an assessment while providing dispatch with the information I could while my mother sat on the floor crying. I was willing to accompany her in the ambulance to the hospital because I knew she was a trauma alert given the situation, her history, and her medications. However, my mother insisted that I not go as she has now become the power of attorney. The paramedics preferred that she not accompany them because they had to do a lot of work and did not want her in the back with them. Keep in mind that my grandmother was bleeding from a head laceration and was unresponsive. I drove my mother to the emergency room, and by the time we were finally allowed back, as soon as we entered, my grandmother asked if my dog was okay because she was worried she had fallen on my dog, who is an adorable little 6-pound Maltese Yorkie that is 17 years old. My mother couldn't handle being there and felt nauseous at the thought of my grandmother receiving stitches, so I drove her back home and returned to the emergency room. My grandmother asked me as soon as I walked in if my mother was treating me well. I replied yes because we were focused on her health. My grandmother did not comprehend the animosity coming from my mother, so I explained the near dog bite incident and the threats of having me evicted. My grandmother was unaware of any of this as I had not mentioned it to her because she did not need the added stress. She told me she does not want my mother around as my mother is chaotic and causes anxiety. I advised my grandmother that this was not really the time for such a discussion. To her credit, she was completely coherent, and in fact, she is already back home in bed, seemingly unaffected after receiving 5 stitches to her forehead. My ex-wife decided to check in with my mother to see how she was coping, and my mother informed her that she was ready to be finished with this situation and wanted to return home. I feel like that is code for placing my grandmother in a nursing home. The verbal agreement between my grandmother and me was that once I purchased the house, she would always have a home here, and I would pay for a hospital bed and home health care if necessary. So far, my family has ignored that plan entirely. Honestly, I feel like since my grandmother would have a nice nest egg available to afford home health care, I must wonder if this is an inheritance issue at play. My mother told my ex-wife that when they sell the house and list it, I can make an offer. My ex-wife is also supporting me in significantly limiting my mother's babysitting time due to the drastic changes in her behavior throughout this ordeal. I understand my brother has also confronted our father regarding how our mother should not be power of attorney because she is unreliable. I do not know if he has attempted to reach out to me since I have him blocked. I am considering unblocking him for a week so we can have a conversation, but I will enforce strict boundaries during that discussion. The crux of the issue is that I genuinely do not accept toxicity in my life. I did not speak to my father for several years due to the negative things he said about my wife. It turns out he was correct, so I apologized and lifted the no-contact policy we had, and our relationship is now great. He advises me not to sever every bridge in my life right now. I told my mother that if I have to sign a mortgage for a brand new home and displace both my son and myself again due to this divorce, I will never forgive her for her lack of support, and our relationship will be over. I have friends attempting to help cover the babysitting responsibilities, as my ex-wife has been taking on extra babysitting time but struggles to manage it entirely due to her work commitments. My divorce attorney is also well-versed in probate and estate law and is already knowledgeable about this situation. Honestly, I believe I may have to sue my mother soon regarding the well-being of my grandmother. My father felt that was somewhat extreme, but I explained to him that after what my grandmother said to me in the emergency room, I cannot, in good conscience, ignore that information. I was present for the entirety of her hospital stay, so I know with certainty that she was 100% cognitively aware. I cannot provide proof, but I just know. However, my father is supporting me in this decision. I am uncertain if I am prepared for this. I feel as though my social life was disrupted due to the divorce, and I dealt with that loneliness, but now I have a good social circle that I am rebuilding. I am unsure if I have the energy to fight my family for my home and my grandmother's care because if I have to move out and purchase a new residence, it will nullify the agreement my grandmother and I had, as her ability to afford home health care relied on the nest egg from the house transfer. Nevertheless, my grandmother has been a constant presence in my life for 40 years and has supported me through all of my mistakes. My mother and brother seem to dwell in my past and frequently bring up stories from my 20s against me. I am awaiting a call tomorrow from my attorney to determine what my next steps will be. No decision seems to be straightforward. Even if I move out and secure my own place, I may distance myself from the drama, but that would feel like abandoning my grandmother. If I do not obtain power of attorney, I worry that home health care will not be available for her, and she has explicitly stated that she does not want to go into a nursing home. I work full-time, manage single parenthood, and am currently trying to complete my master's degree. I understand that I cannot assume 100% responsibility for her well-being full-time, but no one appears to be listening to my proposed solution. Where do I go from here? Story 4. After a whirlwind romance at 22, I thought I was rescuing my ex from his miserable life. But when he threw away our lease for other women, I canceled it first. "You know this looks bad, right?" I asked as he left. He just shrugged, tears streaming down his face. How could I trust someone who cheated while preaching loyalty? Now I'm thriving with someone who truly values me while he's lurking in the shadows. Will he ever learn? A 22-year-old female and my ex-boyfriend, a 24-year-old male, met on Tinder. He lived a state away with his brother and several other people. We began chatting as friends and exchanged explicit messages occasionally for fun. Daily, he would lament about how miserable he was there and how everyone treated him poorly, stating that no one would take him to the Department of Motor Vehicles to have his permit renewed or allow him to practice driving. I quickly grew tired of it. Apparently, he grew up near my location, so I offered him a solution. I told him that if he paid for my fuel, I would assist him in moving back home to his parents' place. He took the offer immediately. I drove him back to the area, which involved about a 12-hour round trip. He dropped all his belongings off at his parents' house, and we went to hang out with my friends. He ended up getting excessively drunk and spent hours throwing up in their guest bathroom. The following day, my friends offered to let him stay with them. That arrangement lasted only a few weeks. He did not have a license, so he ended up living with me, allowing me to take him to work on my way. I took him to get his permit. 3 months later, he could have attempted the behind-the-wheel test to obtain his license. He declined, saying he had not practiced enough. This was back in December. February of this year arrived, and he had driven a total of about 3 times since acquiring his permit, all during excellent weather with daylight. I took him to a quiet area at night and told him we were there to practice driving. He became extremely angry with me, expressing that he hated me because he believed I was taking him to a bar for fun. We got into a significant argument and broke up that night, just 2 weeks before we were supposed to sign the lease for our new place. 2 weeks went by while we were broken up. Initially, when we separated, it was due to my concern that he would never drive, and I did not want to maintain that situation long term. I also felt he was not capable of living life without someone constantly telling him what to do, which was draining. During those 2 weeks, I felt terrible for hurting him, and I kept thinking he had not done anything wrong. I considered that perhaps I simply wanted to go out, have fun, and meet other people. I began blaming myself for everything that went wrong in the relationship. He continuously cried and told me nothing felt right anymore since we were not sleeping in the same room. He still lived with me. The second weekend, he went out with a friend, which he had never done while we were together, and he had them pick him up at the end of my driveway. He did not let me know he was okay, which I was only irritated about since he still lived in my residence and I would have been the last person to see him. I went out that weekend to go bowling with someone. I had fun, but it made me miss him since it was something we did often. When he finally returned, we talked and I told him I missed him. He responded by saying he did not feel the same way. He expressed that he felt I was holding him back and worried that if we got back together, I would not allow him to hang out with his friends anymore. This was astonishing because I had always encouraged him to reach out to people from school and spend time with friends, since he would always bother me when I was doing anything, even using the bathroom or taking a shower. We ended up reconciling a day or two later when I told him he could either choose to be happy with me or let me go, but I could not handle him wavering between the two. He chose to be with me. I asked to see his best friends list on Snapchat since around the same time I discovered he had been paying for Snapchat to pin me as his best friend, so I would be unaware if he was talking to someone else more. He told me she was just a friend and explained everyone on his best friends list. I noticed a significant number of unfamiliar women among his recent contacts and questioned him about them since they were all new. He fell silent and said they were new friends. I asked him why he needed so many new women on his phone, and he responded that he wanted to meet more people. I reassured him that I did not mind if he had his female friends from high school on there, but I did not see our relationship working out if he was getting to know several women on an app that automatically deletes the messages you send. He said he would probably remove them all tomorrow. The following day, I dropped him off at work and informed him that those women had better be gone by the time I picked him up because it was the day we were supposed to sign the lease. He said okay. Halfway through the day, I was emotional and stressed, so I messaged him to explain that I was uncomfortable with him talking to other women while I was committed to making our relationship work. I expressed my concerns in a somewhat lengthy rant, stating that if he did not delete them, he needed to find somewhere else to live because I did not deserve to be cheated on in my own home. He simply replied that he would let me know. At that point, I sensed it was over. If he truly cared for me, he would not need to let me know. He would have deleted them and moved forward. I called and canceled our lease because even if he decided to respect me and try again, I could not trust that he would not lie just to secure a place to live. I was quite devastated. I had been trying to move out since I turned 18 and the cost of everything had been rising significantly. I could not afford to do it without him. I picked him up from work and he was quiet. I asked him so. He replied, "I'm moving out," and when I inquired when he told me someone would be coming to get him in 2 hours. This man packed all his belongings and had them outside within an hour. I told him I was leaving because I could not bear to watch and he asked, "One last hug?" I lost control. I began expressing my anger about how he did not deserve a hug and that he was the one choosing to leave. He started crying and attempted to hug me, but I refused. I was crying and yelling, and then a girl pulled into my driveway to pick him up. I told him, "You know this looks bad, right?" He replied, "I know," and took his belongings before leaving. Am I still fixated on this? Yes, it still affects me. I am not hung up on him, though. I cared for him deeply during and even before our relationship, as I am a compassionate and empathetic person who cares for others, even when they do not deserve it. I know that no matter where life takes me or where I end up, I would never be with him again. I do not trust him and I have zero respect for him. He frequently spun a story about how his ex-wife cheated on him once while he was deployed in the military, and he divorced her because how could she? However, he was more than willing to communicate with other women behind my back throughout our entire relationship. I believe he dated me to have a free ride and escape rent in a nice house. After all this, I ended up meeting someone wonderful. He is mostly put together and he shares my compassion. We are doing really well. As for my ex, he did attempt to come back, but upon seeing I was in a new relationship, he proclaimed that I was merely using my new partner to get over him and that I should not try to return to him when things did not work out. He claimed I was controlling and that if it was not my way, it was the highway. I suppose my way was simply asking him not to cheat on me. I assume that the girl who picked him up did not allow him to use her as a place to stay, prompting him to seek a bounce back. Too bad for him.